Welcome to the first edition of Turn a Page, the Nerd Initiative comic book club done by the Nerd Initiative Bullpen. What is going on, everyone? My name is Ken M. You might know me best from being the host of the ODPH podcast, but I'm also Nerd Initiative Comics Editor-in-Chief. And I brought some of the Bullpen members on here because what we're going to do here is make this a weekly show where we are talking the best in comics, comic stories you want to know about, bringing creators on, about books that you need to have in your collection each and every week, and so much more. But before we get into our first edition, like I said, I got to introduce our panel. And to my left, your right, I can't do his introduction any better than he does himself, so I'm just going to turn it right over to him.
Coming at you live and direct, straight from a folding chair in the ODPH studio. My name is Off the Cuff Tommy, your pop culture connoisseur, friend of the ODPH. Thank you so much for having me on here, Nerd Initiative. Thank you so much, Mr. Ken, for bringing me on. This is a momentous occasion, and I cannot wait to share all these comics and all these stories with all these people out here in Cyberland.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on the show and joining us on the screen. You know him as one half of the dynamic duo that brings you the pop culture news each and every week with a beverage to go along with it. One of our favorite writers here on Nerd Initiative. And if you're not checking out his weekly blog section, you need to go make sure that's in your folder. Give it up for the one and only Matt Roth. Matt, what is going on?
What's up, guys? Yes, I am Matt. I come from a show called Hops Geek News where we talk about beer, comics, all that good stuff. And I'm also a renowned pumpkin spice enthusiast, of course, and it's that time of year. But man, the Nerd Initiative team, yes, if you weren't checking all of everybody's stuff out, first things first, like do that. Subscribe right now while we're doing this. And man, it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to finally get this going off the ground because we are all big comic fans. And that's the one thing that you're going to get from this show is we're going to give you our honest opinions about stories that we think that should be in your collection. We're bringing on creators that seriously you need to make sure that you're reading because we are going to try guiding you into just picking up some of the best each and every week. And we're taking deep dives into stories that we feel need a new look, maybe just a different opinion, but stuff that we are recommending to you because you're not going to come on here and hear us bash anything. That's not what we do here at the Nerd Initiative. We'd like to give you the best stories possible because we want to make this such a community welcoming. Comics is for everybody. That's a motto we live by. And we thought, what better way to start off this edition than go over a series that has been reflected in pop culture on Disney Plus with a show that just wrapped up, but I feel that it's the story that everybody should know about firsthand, and that is Secret Invasion. And that is the Brian Michael Bendis and Leinil Francis Yu story from 2009. One of the most interesting concepts for a story. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
Quite, in fact. What's fantastic about this is that, I am a mythos person. I know of characters. I know of the things that have happened to them. But as far as storylines are concerned, like this is a new endeavor for me. So this is going to be really interesting to get a outsider's perspective of the comics that I know the characters, I know the things, but I don't know the things they've been through technically. So reading this really within the first few pages of the first issue, I'm like freaking out, jumping out of my chair, yelling at my wife, "Oh my God, they did this. Oh my God, they did that." So this is just going to be fantastic and fun ride for me.
Matt, when you first checked out this story, what was your first impressions?
Man, I'm going to be honest. When I very first read this, I was a comic novice. Not that I pretend to know a lot, right? But there was a lot going on in a very short amount of time in this. And to be able to kind of sift through that at the beginning, I had no idea what was going on. And so when I got to reread this recently just to prepare for the show, it made a lot more sense. But man, there's a lot happening. That is my first impression that will always be with me. Like you're hit right from the get-go.
Absolutely. The one thing that fans might not realize, because currently it's an Avengers world, and we all know from the MCU that has been the most dominant characters coming out of Marvel Comics as of late. But during this time, Brian Michael Bendis took over the Avengers franchise and really was doing some creative things and really gave new life to the franchise, which it started swinging back when the movies were there. Because before that, it was all X-Men line, and there's nothing wrong with that. As a diehard X-Men fan, I will talk about that all day, every day. But seeing the creativity that was coming back to the Avengers storyline, and especially this concept, which is so detailed and layered in principle, because we always know the Skrulls have always been associated with the Fantastic Four. And from their initial run way back when, and how it ended with them turning into cows. And if you really want a wild series to go read, Skrull Kill Crew. I'm just going to say go look on at your local comic shops or Marvel Unlimited to see how that kind of tailed off. But to see how they were introduced in this manner that they had been planning for so long to take revenge on the Illuminati, because the one thing that I think Bendis did really well is he really tied in that the Illuminati of the Marvel Universe, the ones that think they know it all, really screw up a lot. I mean, that's my opinion of them. That just for being Reed Richards and Namor and Black Bolt and the list goes on and on, they really find ways to just completely drop the ball. Like, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, they're narcissistic pricks.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to put it. But we can't exactly lie. But I mean, Tony Stark is Tony Stark. So that's the one thing with him that you see when he's making a lot of plans, that he's always the focal piece when they go after somebody about it. And it's always kind of like a wild thing for me to see, because I remember when Tony Stark was such a B-level character, and then his rise now currently in Marvel. I mean, he's such a A-lister.
Oh, yeah.
And to see now his effects, that he's such a flawed character, and to see that he and Reed Richards are behind this, it's kind of a wild concept. Like, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's their comeuppance. You know, the road to hell is paved in good intentions, and as good intentions as the Illuminati think they are, it balances out in the cosmic long run.
Yeah. Like, Matt, wouldn't you, like, when you think about the Illuminati and basically they're the cause of all this, like, how does that sink in for you?
I mean, you're 100% right. They are through and through. And one thing that always sticks out is any of these big storylines that we get, such as Secret Invasion, Secret Wars. It doesn't matter what it is. You mentioned earlier too, like the Fantastic Four. This is a core story for them. They always are, and which kind of made me laugh, because there's a line by Natasha where she basically says, Tony, you know, why do you think they tried to brainwash you so bad? It's because you're the most important person. You're the most important person. And then 5 minutes later, it's like, oh no, we got Reed Richards back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Somebody was saying the audio was off, so we're just trying to check levels here. But no, I agree with you. I mean, that's the whole thing about this concept, is just with the Illuminati being the result of it and destroying the Skrull homeworld. I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's the catalyst for it. And it's kind of like almost thrown away for a certain degree. But then when they bring it back now, that when this event happens, and it happens so subtly, because in the pages of New Avengers, that's where Elektra is found out to be a Skrull. Everybody has this big like sense of like, wait, what happened? And then as the story kicks in, I mean, you think about it, Tom, when you opened that first page of issue number 1, like, what was the reaction as you're reading this?
Oh, it was guttural. It absolutely was. Again, just having this fresh perspective. Again, my comic knowledge is one way and the other. Like, I know Secret Invasion over here in you know, pop culture, how they did it in Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, how they adapted it to the Wii U video game, and again, what we've gotten on TV. So for the first pages, for me to open up and see an autopsy, that was very nicely blocked. Just saying.
Jesus.
Well,
man.
Comics are for everyone, even kids, so they blocked it out nicely. Yeah, it was something to go.
Yeah. And then, Matt, I mean, when you're going through the initial pages here, like, how would you describe that to new readers?
As far as new readers go, it can be almost daunting, like confusing. I get it, because for a second there, I was like, "Oh man, yeah, I'm with you guys," to where it was. I kind of forgot about this story because I focused more on the pop culture side of things. So when I started reading again, I was like, "Wait, when was she a Skrull?" And then you're kind of going through, it's like, "Wait, who is the Skrulls? Who is not?" And then you're seeing just double of every hero right off the bat, and it's hard not to get excited too at the same time amongst all the chaos.
Yeah. And especially too at this time, I mean, you're coming off the heels of Civil War. Tony Stark is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is crazy enough to think about. And there's so much, you know, tension between the superheroes.
Oh, very much.
You know, and to see now the Skrulls pick their moments and to start attacking. And like I say, when they really went after it, they were so thought out about going after S.H.I.E.L.D. and how they set up everybody, and especially going after Reed Richards, because they have the most history with him. they never seem to find a way to stop him, even though they've tried doing everything they can in their powers to do it, even with the creation of Super Skrulls.
Correct.
So now it's like they take him off the board. Tony is infected with this crazy virus that is completely killing him, and he really has no background. And then when they finally make their moves, like it's finally unveiled, the superheroes are just so thrown off their games. And this is something I thought Bendis really dived into, is he really played into the paranoia factor.
Oh, very much. I mean, they pulled the rug out right underneath them, and they had nowhere to go. Like, they didn't even have time to hit the floor, if you think about it. They fell into a hole right underneath, like Bugs Bunny cartoon. They pull out the carpet and they hit the hole. And and they're like, where am I going? And just that whole idea of what is happening, what is going on here, there's no real way to have any recourse for it or how to rebound from it.
Mm-hmm.
Just had to go with it second by second and live or die kind of moments.
Yeah. And when we think about go right ahead, Matt.
Okay, I was going to say, to tag on to that, they do a really good job of essentially capturing the fog of war too, right? I mean, it's a kind of a blitzkrieg almost with the Skrulls just boom, they're there all of a sudden, and now you got this chaos. It's whether it's New York, whether it's on the helicarrier, whether doesn't matter where it is, everybody's just confused. But at the same time, it's like you're trying to protect Earth, and they do a really good job of kind of building up that tension of, all right, so who really is the Skrull? And you're just all sorts of fog and going on, and they did a really good job of capturing that right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely. I think when especially you really hit that moment when the New Avengers wind up in the Savage Land. And like that's where you can really tell it sinks in for everybody. Because I mean, when the initial attack happens, they're going after the Illuminati because of what they did to the Skrull world. But now it's affecting everybody. And then when you see that moment where everybody sees each other for the first time, and at this moment, the heroes are coming out and acting like, oh, who are all these? And I know we have the screenshot up now. And chat, feel free to give us your comments about this moment. Is when you see the initial reactions of everybody seeing each other for the first time. This is a moment that you're going, oh, whoa, like what is going on? Because that was my reaction reading this.
I said "Sweet Christmas." So I'm just saying 2 loose on pages, and I had to.
One of the things too is if the everybody coming off the ship too was in their retro outfits. Like you got retro stars, you got retro Luke Cage, like everybody's in their throwback uniforms, and it kind of makes you pop. It's hard not to.
Yeah. I mean, that was the cool thing too, because it set up, if these are real, how long has the Skrulls been planning this? And to do that kind of build, that's what really made this story so interesting off the jump, because the Skrulls have always been kind of throwaway characters. I mean, let's be honest.
They're good shoo-ins for when they need a bad guy of the week.
Yeah, but we've never really taken them that seriously in this extent. I mean, except for the Kree Skrull War way back when in the 70s in the Avengers. But at this level, it's like this is so well plotted out, and especially when you see the Avengers finally meeting there, and they don't know what to do because Reed Richards is gone. He's off-world.
Right.
And there's no way to tell who is real and who is not. And it brings up one point, and I mean, for me, this is what really sold like how emotional this was. And I was talking with Tom off air about this. And Matt, I just want to ask you, when the reveal happens about Mockingbird and Hawkeye.
October 12th.
Yeah.
Yes.
How much of a gut punch is that moment?
Well, it's hard not to feel emotional, right? Because Hawkeye was so convinced that she was a Skrull. And then, tell me something that only we would know. And she brings up something very personal. I mean, they were going to, they thought their baby's date was going to be October 12th. They thought that was the due date. Mm-hmm. So something very personal. So for the Skrulls to pull that deep and dig that deep. And then it turns out that, wow, this whole time, like somebody else knew something that personal, that he was very vulnerable in this moment. In this whole time, it's like, wait, we were the only ones that should have known that. How did this Skrull know that? And it's heartbreaking, especially, for Clint, because he's already having to figure out and like shoot his friends who he thinks it's his friends. Right. And on top of that, this is a traumatic experience.
Yeah. I think the one thing too with Hawkeye, he's very underrated about how good of a hero he is, because obviously doesn't have superpowers, can shoot arrows all day, but it's the actions he takes, and that screenshot right now too. Yeah. I mean, it explains it. when that moment happens, like, he represents what a hero should be because he just goes with his emotion. He goes what he feels is right. And like when that moment hits and he's like, I know we're in battle, but it's like, how do I prove this? And when that moment hits, it's like, it takes him out of being the superhero and just makes him a normal human being. And that's why I think why so many people connect to him on that level. Because like I say, he could be like Captain America with super strength, Iron Man with a suit, Thor with Asgardian powers. But this is where it really brings him. And this is kind of what made him, I don't want to say like a breakout moment for him, but I think after the series came out, like he really caught a lot more people's attention.
Well, he was also one of like the most unsung heroes of this because he really puts in work. I mean, he nails that final arrow to the face in, at the final battle of all things. And he kind of just goes to work. And to me, he's probably like one of the MVPs of this entire, run.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tom, would you say so?
I would completely agree. I think that having all the different styles of teams on there is also really nice, especially seeing what happened and how you see the Secret Avengers and what's going on with their turmoil in the first few issues, and then we see what's going on with the Mighty Avengers, and then we get stuff with the Initiative. So I really think that everybody got their time to shine, but definitely focusing in on certain key characters from each team made it all the more relatable.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you on that. And especially, too, I love how you brought up the point, too, about the Avengers Initiative. Not to get confused with Nerd Initiative, because I think if we ever did the Skrull Secret Invasion, I think amongst our Discord chat, which you'd be signing up for at nerdinitiative.com, it is one of those things, like, when you see this play, and then you see, like, just how Nick Fury is such a factor in this as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one key factor as well, because at this point, he's got his own group that he's been building behind the scenes.
Right.
And almost in preparation of this. Like, that's the kind of crazy thing about it.
Now, what caught me off guard with that, especially because it was Nicholas J. Fury that we had on there, not Sam Jackson Fury. I didn't realize at that point that we still had old school David Hasselhoff Nick Fury.
Yeah.
So that
Oh,
might flip the page.
yeah.
Oh, hey, it's the Hoff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, that's obviously was, I think before they started doing the Nicholas Fury Jr.
Right.
Because I mean, obviously, if you read the comics, Nick Fury that you know from there became the Watcher and just all types of craziness after this.
Up for another episode.
Yes. But to see how he takes hold of what is going on and just leading in these rookies into battle, like to put that in perspective, can you just imagine if you have a team of untrained individuals? Some have different variations of powers.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to stop 1 million Skrulls that are invading and taking over. And they've already taken out the Avengers. They've taken out the Fantastic Four. Like, what do you think their odds are? Like, that's the crazy thing. I mean, Matt, what do you think about that?
It's daunting, right? I mean, you're just dropped right in the middle and it's like, wait, they already took out who again? And what do you expect us to do?
Mm-hmm.
And they're a very, green team. So but at the same time, it's hard not to get excited, seeing the Howling Commandos kind of pop back on screen. It takes you right back and it gets you excited and kind of one of those jump for joy moments that you're so used to reading in a lot of comic books.
Mm-hmm.
Were they really the green team?
Well played.
Just saying. Thanks, JJ.
But to see how that all kind of goes up too as well, I mean, that's such a moment as well. Like I say, to stress that point too, like Nick Fury really is one of the unsung heroes of this series.
Oh, yeah.
And especially how he's literally holding it down, fighting everybody. Meanwhile, the Savage Land is going on. And then you have Officer Brand sneaking into the Skrull spaceship to free Reed Richards, which turns out to be one of the craziest moments you've seen because of how they have him tortured. And the moment he gets freed, I mean, right there on the screen, we have the Secret Warriors, which to see like their dramatic debut, especially with how under wraps that series was, and then see them really kind of flourish here. I mean, that was a really excellent moment. And then
just look at the size of that gun real quick, by the way. Can we just talk about like the massive gun that Fury's just packing in this? It's ridiculous.
As somebody that has read many Image comics from the 1990s and X-Force, like that just takes me back. If he just had more pouches, it would be like the greatest moment ever.
Especially on the ankles.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, but that gun, yeah, I agree with you. Like that is just some weird video game nonsense that is just absolutely insane, and I love it. And that's kind of what you have to have here too, because I mean, obviously, a space invasion in the Marvel universe, you're going to do some kind of crazy stuff, and that's what you see here too. And just to see him go completely wild and lead these troops in, and nobody has any idea who it is until Reed Richards is finally freed, makes a machine in like under a minute, pretty much. I mean,
As
that's
he
how
does.
That's how it felt like to me. And he's like, "Oh yeah, here's how it goes." And yeah, right there on the screen, you can see how they.
This was a brutal sequence too.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yeah. Did
Yeah.
not see that coming from Hank.
Oh no,
Or
Because-
Skrull Hank.
Yeah, because we had Skrull Hank too. And especially like how deep rooted the setup was. I mean, it kind of echoes a little bit what happens on the TV show, but to see how it really worked here, there's so many other moving parts that really make this so more impactful.
Oh, yeah. You got to think the Skrulls planned this, and they planned it so well. And Matt put it perfectly. It was a blitzkrieg maneuver. They hit every point all at the same time. You know, it really, really, you just got to give it to the chins.
Yeah. I agree with you,
Oh,
Brad, in the chat there. The kickback on that thing must be crazy. Absolutely. If you see this thing go off, you're like, how is he still standing? But then again, we just define it up as we do on the ODPH, reasons. But it still works in this
Yes.
moment. Yeah. I mean, but that's how the craziness of this. And then especially when you have all the drama going on in the Savage Land and you have the Jessica Drew Skrull Queen reveal.
Oh,
Talk to us about this, Tom.
you know, just like you said earlier, the psychological aspect that you were getting out of this of who's a Skrull, who's not a Skrull, who can I trust, who can't I trust, to take Spider-Woman that everybody, I mean, to my knowledge, again, everybody loves Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. So to see this 180 like that really just it was a whole turn. Like I didn't see it coming, and you know, it's been how many years? I might know the story, but again, it was kicking my thwip, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Matt, how did you feel about the Jessica Drew Spider Queen or Skrull Queen reveal?
It's no, I'm with Tom. I mean, it's hard not to be like taken aback, but at the same time, it's kind of like a, you know, say Roman Reigns when he to his heel turn, right? We're so used to seeing that face, and that's what she was, and that's what she always is. People always remember Jessica Drew as a face, but to get that chance to kind of do the 180, fewer things get me more excited than to see when characters get to play the opposite of themselves. It just gets me just wicked pumped to see this side of the character because you never really get to see it.
Yeah. And one great thing here, too, is when she's almost doing like the mental breakdown of Tony Stark.
Oh,
Because when Tony is so sick,
it was a mental mind.
yeah, like how brilliant Bendis's writing was, because you can see how she's laying out the whole battle plan and saying like there's nothing you can do about it. And he is literally public enemy number one in the Skrull Nation about what he did because he's the head of the Illuminati. And then sure enough, when you have that moment go down, like it's just one of the more intense scenes that I think Bendis really just wanted to drive home. Like you understand what the Skrulls are doing, and you understand like how mad they are, because when you have your homeworld blown up and you're basically left for dead because Tony Stark and Reed Richards thinks it's a great idea, you really have to kind of put it in perspective. And like I don't want to say you empathize with them, but you can kind of understand their logic behind this. I mean, that's how I kind of read it. That I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I agree.
Totally. Like you said, they're just so devastated. Where do they get back at him that way? Where can we be so severe and take the human race out at the same time?
Yeah. And it just plays into it. Like I say, we see the shot on the screen too where Natasha has to come and save him, Black Widow. And you just see about how he's just so broken down just because one thing that I thought Bendis didn't shy away from, and I thought Yu's artwork really showed this, is when the moments hit that Tony has screwed up, and this is on him, you see just how unhinged he is. Like he's not the cool, calm Tony Stark that pop culture fans know from the movies and the comic fans know in recent years as the coolest Avenger in the room. You see him really broken and how he can't fix this.
And how it's drawn too. You see the turmoil and the tension in his face.
Yeah.
And the wrinkles and just a man apart from himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it's just such a unique factor that they decided to do with this, and I loved how they brought it up, right there, and really just wanted to drive that point home. Like your heroes win this. I mean, we all know usually the good guys win at the end of the day, unless it's Watchmen or something like that. But in this situation, you really had a sense of like maybe they're going to go something game changing here, and maybe they're going to push that envelope a little further to go, and especially when you see Vernak, who is the Skrull Queen,
right,
and how she's setting everything up, it just really is kind of pushing everybody to their limits. And especially too when you have Critty Knoll, who is the one that was posing as Hank Pym, getting involved too. And especially when they know they're losing, they have to really adapt. And how they do the sleeper agent, which I'll get to in a second. Because, I mean, there's so many great parts about this. And Chad, if there's one moment in this series that you want to talk about, throw it in there too, because we don't mind deep diving about this, because we're just kind of naming about like the great parts of this series that you want to check out, because if you've only seen the TV show, you really want to make sure to check this series out.
Oh yeah, and again, if you flip back to the Disney series, Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, by far one of my favorite adaptations of Marvel characters ever. They only did it in 2-3 episodes. Highly recommend everybody goes on your Disney Plus, check it out, put it in your queue. But this is soup to nuts different, honestly. I mean, you put the nuts in the soup if you want and just put it all together and blend it up and enjoy it. But it's all of the media is good.
Yeah. And then especially when you go into the other moving parts, like I say, there's one aspect that came up in this. And I understand at the time, I don't think it made a lot of sense to everybody, but I think it does now.
Yeah, considering who the character I think you're going to talk about.
The Hood?
Oh, no.
I was going the Hood. Who are you going with?
I was going with Jarvis.
Well, Jarvis is there too, so I'll let you take that first. But I want to get to the Hood point too, because I think that that's going to be something I want to bring in a little bit. But go right ahead.
So as another sleeper agent, having Jarvis in there, and now all of us, again, in social media and pop culture, we've been in the past decade, understanding that Jarvis then became the Vision and this and so on and so forth. But to actually see physical Jarvis still there in that run, and to see him be a sleeper agent in Tony's house, and then what goes down with Jessica and Luke's kid, totally did not see that. Like, you're the fan, like you're literally almost to some effect the Alfred of Marvel in some aspects, and then again, like Matt said, that 180 that you got out of it, just to see that heel turn was mind-blowing, to say the least.
Yeah, because especially like how he comes right on the screen there, right? How he just comes walking on the helicarrier. And it's just so calm. He's like, yes, I've been wondering if you were so kind to take our full offer and surrender to Maria Hill. And Maria Hill's like, no. And it winds up blowing up the helicarrier, too.
Especially because a lot of these characters, they see Jarvis and they're like, that comfort, right? They're so used to him being that go-to, that comfort. Hey, I can lean on you. So you see it with Jessica leaving their child. You see it Maria at first. Even it's like, oh, thank God Jarvis is here. And then it's like, nope. Not at all. Just the gravity of the series and the situation, you're just like, dang, this is heavy. It's full of brutal moments too.
Oh yeah, the emotional toll it takes on so many characters here too. Like I say, Hawkeye and Mockingbird just jumps off the page here. Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, it jumps off the page at the end, and especially it eventually gets rectified in a good manner, but it also leads into the next big crossover that was going on in Marvel with Dark Reign, and the worst decision by any government this side of Jar Jar Binks getting elected as a senator to put Order 66 through. I'm saying it, yes, at ODPH Podcast if you want to talk about that. But I am just saying in this moment, like you have those emotional gut punches in there, and just how Bendis is weaving this, and especially with used artwork. And then how they kind of tie into some other elements that they were having linger around, and that's the Hood. And I know that we have not seen that character lately. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors about pop culture is going to get introduced to him sooner than later. But to see about how he was working behind the scenes.
Yep.
And I think that added just this weird layer to the story, because the Hood is all about crime and about being better than Kingpin, more or less. And he obviously has magical powers to do this. But when he sees no Earth is not good for business and literally gets his syndicate involved, How wild is that moment, Tom?
Didn't see it coming. I'll be quite honest. I mean, I'm again familiar with the Hood and obviously what's coming soon. You know, with Ironheart and everything. But to see, oh, okay, all right, we're going there. We're getting some mysticism in here. We're getting some magic. You know, even with what Iron Man said earlier, that the Skrulls can't be detected by technology, by mutant powers, and now we've got magic. Like, they're just throwing the whole pot of powers at the Skrulls and see what hits.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Matt, what was your reaction to the Hood's choice here?
You can clearly tell that Bendis and team are having a lot of fun, and they were like, "What are parameters? Like, what can't we do?" And Marvel was just basically like, "Nothing. Go ahead." So, and he was like, "All right, let's see how crazy we can get," and we get real crazy, as evidenced, right? With, I mean, him even being like it's bad for business, which makes sense from a villain standpoint, right? They don't want their world to end. They still want to be able to have their empires and things of that nature. So it really made sense when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And especially, I mean, the Hood is one of Bendis' characters. And to really put him in that kind of spotlight and really establish him as a true threat and how much of a force of nature he has to be with what he can do and the army he has, they have to become the good guys in this weird flipping, you know, like we talked about, the 180s of heel turns and face turns, to use wrestling terminology. To see this happen is a crazy scene. And then just to see how it's all tying together, because when you have these big battles going on and then ultimately leading up into one of the crazier situations happening, and that is with the Wasp and what happens to her, that you see how layered the story is. You see how Bendis was basically just writing, like, if they wind up losing, they do have a plan B, and they wind up initiating it, because once Reed Richards comes in, hits the magic button, we now know who are Skrulls. There's a lot of heartbreaking moments here too, because as much as the information of October 12th comes in,
oh god, yeah,
you know, you do see how Hawkeye is reacting to it, and you do see how the Skrull Queen Varric is like ready to claim victory and winds up getting an arrow for it, because obviously, and that was the perfect person to do it too.
And, on top of it, the fact that, you know, at that point Clint was Ronin. He put down his bow, but he picked up Kate's.
Yeah.
You know, that was just the moment of, is this his turning point, that he's ready to be Hawkeye again in that perspective, or is he doing this out of sheer revenge and going to what he knows?
Mm-hmm. And that's just what, he's such a great character. Like I say, I love seeing this out of Hawkeye, because obviously he had probably the more, like, everybody had these big emotional moments and personal ones, but I think for him, it's like right there on the screen too. You can see just the rage in him and just everything pour out, that he's just like, you've really gone out of your way to mess with me on a different level. This is beyond good and evil. This is beyond superheroes and supervillains. Like, we now have to address the situation.
Very much.
To put it mildly.
He got right to the tip.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah, he got right to the point about that. And then obviously when he takes out the Skrull Queen, you see the plan B is activated. And that is, they basically make the Wasp a living bomb.
A dirty bomb at that.
Yeah, I mean, break it down for us here.
God, so they alluded to it earlier, and I was like, you know, when you're initially reading, you're like, where are they going? Okay, they have a with the Wasp. What? Okay, she shrinks. Are they going to do something with that? But no, we get this sequence of basically Hank Pym. They get a flashback, and he's injecting her with, you know, essentially turning her into that bomb at that moment, and that's when everything hits her. And it's just, when you think of Ant-Man and the Wasp, you think Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne. That's just PB&J right there. And so to understand that Hank was never Hank, and she's never going to see Hank again, and Hank's going to come back eventually to realize what happened to Wasp, it's a heavy moment, man. And luckily for Thor to kind of come in and save the day, but really all the heroes are like, what? You know, even in victory, there is death. And as you see here right in this panel, it's a beautifully well-drawn panel. It is very heavy hitting and emotional, and it's sad.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, keeping that shot on screen too, how you paints this, and like literally you can just feel in this whole beautiful panel spread that it just completely takes your breath away, because you're just seeing just the build is finally paying off here. You see so many various characters involved too. And especially the one that really kind of stood out to me, which was weird to see, because we're used to seeing the heroes going on here, but you see the Watcher in the background. and he can't get involved. But when you see him in any Marvel event,
it's a thing.
Yeah, it's DEFCON 5.
And the
Well,
best part
they
is
even mentioned that.
Yeah, with Spidey of all people. Like, I'm glad Spidey got his. That was his moment to shine right there. Like, oh yeah, Uatsu's here. Shit.
Yeah, like it sinks in. But the one character that felt out of place, but he winds up being the hero of the day, is Norman Osborn of all people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like this moment.
There he is.
There's Uatu just watching and just like how and he can't get involved. And it almost looks like in that panel too, he's crying on his left left eye. It almost looks like he's crying.
The shadows, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and to have that emotion too, because I mean, the Wasp has been obviously one of the founding members of the Avengers.
She's also the heart of the team in a lot of adaptations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to see this moment happen, like you see the heartbreak of the Marvel universe go down, because as much as they win, they lose, and they lose badly, because the Wasp is unfortunately killed off at this moment, and the hero of the day is Norman Osborn, who's Dark Avengers, aka Thunderbolts, at this moment.
Yep.
Wind up becoming the heroes of the public eye, much in the same vein, if you will, of the Boys. Comparing different universes, but it's kind of in that same manner, because obviously we know Norman is evil to the core. Even in his redemption phases, for a cup of coffee, he still is evil. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion about that. But it's true. It's to see him get the kill shot with the weapons Deadpool of all people stole.
Yep.
And he's now the public hero because you see that news camera behind him in that shot too.
Yeah, how convenient.
Yeah, like it's almost so staged. It's picture perfect.
It's perception is reality instead of perception versus reality.
Yeah, and to see this shot here that we have on screen as well too. To see him standing with all the heroes, and especially the Spider-Man on the other side of Wolverine too, as they're ready to make that final play, like it's just an insane moment to think about that Norman Osborn, a hero? And
one thing I really, sorry, I didn't.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, man.
One thing that I noticed when I'm looking at this page, of course, is if you see all the heroes, they're kind of clumped together, and then Norman's kind of separated, which is just beautiful writing. There's storytelling within the artwork as always. And they just absolutely go to the next level on these ending pages.
Yeah, no, I agree with you too. One thing about the artwork too, and if I can ask Michael, who's been so gracious to produce this for us, if we can get a battle sequence, like one of the full page ones, I want to see if I can find something on here, because there was one little thing, thank you. There was one little aspect, if you look into these big battle scenes, Howard the Duck is thrown in these.
What?
Yes.
If
you go back through this, and because I caught this in an interview with Bendis, and he was saying like you was pranking him basically, more or less, and putting Howard the Duck in these scenes. So if you go through, you might be able to find him on there. Like it just kind of shows like how crazy they are. And
I almost want to Google this while no one's looking.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, if you Google it, you might be able to find it, because I swear, like he was in some of these big battle scenes, and somebody asked him, I can't remember the interview about this, so you can just see that he's lurking somewhere in here. And like that just shows how much the fun they were having, but it also kind of shows how grand scale this stuff is. And especially one thing we always hear with any kind of big crossovers between the big two primarily is just these moments don't really mean a lot. And in this case, it did, because of just how game-changing it was, and just to see these iconic pictures of the battles going on. It just really elevated the story up, because, I mean, obviously what happens after here is Dark Reign, and Norman Osborn is now running S.H.I.E.L.D., which turns into Hammer, and that turns into a whole hot mess express. To see just this all kind of tie into the Skrulls are defeated and just the next phase kick in, and especially about how Luke Cage and Jessica Jones get their daughter back.
Oh, I see Howard the Duck in this. Sorry, I found him.
You do? I was looking for it right now on my end too.
He's right behind Reed Richards' head.
Yes.
Can we get a zoom?
There he is. Right behind Reed's head. There
Yeah,
you go.
can,
For everybody who's
you
like,
can
what?
kind of see him
Yes,
as I'm
he is
pointing
there.
right now.
It looks like he's hiding behind a very statuesque
That's amazing.
bosom. Really.
Yeah. It's just crazy, but it goes kind of back to just say about how much fun they were having, but also just the gravity of the situation going on.
Oh yeah.
You know,
they had the whole toy box and they weren't afraid to use it.
yeah. And I think that's one thing about this crossover that really stood out to me is Bendis at this time was, right there.
Thank you.
Right there.
There he is.
Yep. So Howard is lurking in all these big battle scenes. So when you go back and reread this is where you have to go find it. And like I say, it's a great little thing that they were doing. And I just remember seeing Bendis's, you could tell he was having fun with this too. He's just like, every time I get these pages, I find Howard, to kind of paraphrase. But it goes to show about like when you have all these characters and you're really allowed that creative freedom to deep dive and really go someplace with this. Like that's what makes it so amazing. That, as us as comic readers, and depending on like where you're jumping in, like Tom is very new to this.
Yep.
Matt, you said you were just kind of a novice at the time. And me, I am, we don't need to talk about how old I am.
He's the hardest working man in comics and podcasts.
Well, thank you.
It's very
Thank
true.
You. Check is in the mail. But in
We
this
get paid.
What do I say?
Getting paid?
But in this kind of situation, you see when the creators are really allowed to let loose, especially at a Marvel level, that this is just fan moments that we talk about and say like, this is a really cool story. The ending, I felt was a little rushed. I mean, I guess if we could say like, is there anything else that we really want to talk about the story? We shift to like, is there anything we didn't really like?
Didn't like. Well, I will say there's one final thing that I did like is while Norman Osborn is essentially getting his flowers, Thor in the Avengers, you see the team isn't really the team because Thor basically, because it's off the heels of Civil War. I can't take anything serious with Howard on the screen, but
I'm just waiting till Howard has a Nerd Initiative logo on him.
He's telling Tony essentially like, I didn't forget what you did. We will never fight together ever again. Like this was a once in a lifetime thing. Like we're done. And so meanwhile, like I said, you got Norman getting his flowers. He's taken over the world. And on the other side of things, Tony just lost everything. And it's very stark contrast.
Hey. No, but you're exactly right. I mean, I think this kind of gave a good redemption arc going for Tony at the moment because, Tony just finds a way to screw up.
Oh, yeah.
But at this moment, like I say, he's broken down and there's only one place to go up. And obviously we see the Illuminati start coming into a bigger picture at this moment too, because obviously they've been doing a lot of things that they should not have been doing.
Like they do.
Yeah. And they kind of find out the hard way. And this is just one of those fan like series that you kind of read and you got to be excited about because you see everybody together and you really see a true test to them and just such an interesting concept with a longtime villain. And especially when you're allowed that creative freedom to really run and do some things. Yeah. Oh God, that face. Yes, Norman Osborn just be seeing you, Your Highness. Just and that evil look, like I say, the artwork here is just so top notch.
I still hear Willem Dafoe every time I read Osborn.
Yes.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, as you should, because he's just definitive in that stage. But I mean, there's so much to really like about this. Was there anything that we really didn't like? Starting with Tom.
I wouldn't have mind a little bit more quippiness from Spidey.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the severity of everything going on, but sometimes the levity that we can get from Pete is needed. I know we also had the fun little joke with Venom, but Spider over. That was cool. There wasn't anything that I necessarily didn't like. I just would have liked a little bit more of.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wolverine in the first few pages was great. I like the fact that you shot me. I don't care. I'm going to shoot first and ask questions later. That was a great, scene right there. All in all, like, again, it's just add to more than wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's where I couldn't find fault with this at all. But I will agree that it was very much an up roller coaster ride, and then instead of a good fall, and then instead of a good downbeat, it was a straight down and out to resolution. We did get a few pages and a few good panels of a battle, but as much buildup as we had emotionally leading up to the big fight, and again looking at the Wasp's perspective and going in with that story, I don't think there was a lot of resolution with the characters at the fight at the time. That makes sense.
Agreed. Matt, what do you think? What was something you didn't necessarily like?
Yeah, so I know JJ in the chat earlier kind of said it was the pace was just breakneck, and I agree with that. It's a very massive story, and I kind of wish they had a little bit more than 8 issues to tell it because for those emotional moments, right? Like the Mockingbird, Clint moment, like it would have been nice to have let those breathe just a little more, or maybe the whole final battle climactic sequences kind of not go straight down, right? Like kind of let them breathe and play out just a little bit more, I think, rather to really help you feel these moments, because by the end you just kind of feel like you're out of breath and your brain's kind of all over the place because a lot happened and not a lot of time. And I get it, there's certain things that go on, but yeah, just if we had two more issues to kind of let some of this just breathe a little bit, I think it would have hit just a little bit harder.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this is kind of going to be a rarity statement for me, but I kind of wish we had a filler issue, just something to give us
Yeah.
like a little buffer in the middle, like between 5 and 6. Like that would have been like perfect. Like I don't want to say like a
You got to be able to breathe.
yeah, because there was just so much going on, and when we had the reveals too, I mean, I kind of wish that one of them had actually stuck too. Like we really had like Hank Pym had been gone all this time, and he really was gone, just to kind of really give a sense of just how detailed it was, because it almost felt like, I don't want to say too much of a happy ending, because I mean, anytime Norman Osborn's on top, it's not a happy ending. But I think that if they really kind of had like a bigger level to who the reveals were, like almost like if Tony Stark was really a Skrull the entire time, I think it would have really just elevated just a hair more, and really like done a little bit more to sell it too. Like let's say that they took him prisoner when they destroyed the original Skrull world. Like granted, it's far fetched, but I mean let's put it out there that they did the swap there. I think that would have really added something to it.
Now, speaking of adding things, there were some tie-ins prior to. There was about 12 issues there, and then on top of it, there were a few little here and there issues. You can look them up all online. But as far as the base, if you're just following a straight storyline and aren't the type to go off in tangents, yeah, the 8 issues, the pacing really, again, to agree with chat, and thank you to everybody in the chat.
Absolutely.
It was a breakneck pace.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only kind of takeaway I would say is like it was just too fast, but I don't think it really hurt everything overall. Like I just think like once we get to the end, it's like, bam, we get hit. And that's really, really crazy, to think about. So I guess we'll just kind of say if we got to give a grade on this, and however you do your grading system, I know Matt has a fantastic one with the cigars in homage to Wolverine. I do my usual out of 10. Tom, I'll start with you. What would you give this a grade?
Solid 9.2 out of 10. Like I said, there's a few little things that I would like more of, but the emotional aspect that we get out of it, the action, the throwback costumes, like I said, there wasn't much that was wrong with it. I just think that there could have been just a little bit more here and there.
Fair enough. Matt, how about you? Going off your grade scale.
Yes, so my out of 5 cigars in honor of the one and only Wolverine, I'm giving this about a 4.3 out of 5 cigars. I'm going to start that 5th cigar, but I'm not going to quite finish it because, again, for the reasons that we've already stated and kind of beat to death, right? It's just doesn't breathe. If it had just that filler in it, because it has a lot of really good stuff in this, and there's a lot of great action moments and sequences, but we just needed just that little bit more to give it that full on chef's kiss.
Yeah, for me, I kind of went a little back and forth about it, but when I did the reread, it actually bumped it up because I remember just at this time, and that's the big thing you got to remember too when you're reading these older stories. I mean, granted, it's not super old, but in the aspect of when this was all going down, the Avengers were having this big renaissance and really came back to be Marvel's mightiest heroes, not just Earth's. So when you see this all play out and just the dramatic factors going in and Bendis' fantastic writing and just giving you enough emotional punch that you can invest it. Meanwhile, with the breakneck action that's going on with Yu's fantastic artwork, it just really is a perfect blend that like right when you get to the end, had they just slowed up and let it breathe, I think it would have been a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
But on my scale, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. That I just think it was almost near perfect, except we just didn't have enough time to really soak in those moments. So like when you put down an issue, and when you read like a perfect issue, and whatever your interpretation is of that.
Right.
And you kind of sit down and you got to pause just for like a couple seconds to just let it soak in. I don't think we had that moment here until just at the very end, like if you do a straight read through.
which I did today. Because
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I read everything day of, so it is fresh, it is raw. I don't have time to dwell on it. You guys get a live, off the cuff reaction.
I love the branding. I love how it's thrown in. But no, but that's the truth though. Like I think if you read this as it was coming out monthly, I don't think it would have hit as much, like per se. But like when you start reading and there's just so much like big action, big action, big action, it's just a lot to process, especially when you see how it's all pairing up.
Yep.
And like I say, there's so many moving parts, which I give him credit for handling too, because you had the entire Marvel universe in the palm of your hands, and we're introducing new characters like the Initiative, like the Young Warrior or Young Avengers, Secret Warriors. Like there's so many people involved. I don't feel anybody got overlooked per se. Like the key players really got their time to shine. And I think that, especially you see how everybody's on screen right here and how crazy this moment is. And this is just one of the fight scenes you see going on. Everybody really has their balance. I'm looking for Howard the Duck now, too.
I know that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, he's there. He's there. I definitely want to have everybody hit us up on Twitter at nerd_initiative and let us know your pictures when you find them, too, because I think that'd be something really great.
Also, speaking of throwing the toy box out there, I love the fact that Hulkling got a minute or two right there, just a few little panels, especially with everything that, eventually with, I don't know if this was out at that point, Hulkling, I'm talking about him and his relationship. So to see Hulkling and Wiccan and have that, seeing what was developing there, if it was already going on, I did like that little nod. And hey, I'm part Skrull, maybe I can talk to him.
Yeah, no, I mean, you saw just the emergence of the young heroes too.
Yep,
that was one thing that I thought they were really trying to push as well. And obviously, Young Avengers is still popular to this day. I feel we will see more of them down the road. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Say no more. Say no more.
Yep.
I do appreciate the initiative because I know that one of the teams in Pennsylvania is actually out of my hometown of Philadelphia. So the Libertines.
Yes. But it just goes to show about how great this story is.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one that if you're a Marvel Comics fan, you definitely need to go check out. And we actually have a little something fun for you, the Nerd Initiative audience.
Yes, we do.
Because this is the inaugural edition of Turn a Page. And our great leaders of Nerd Initiative, shout out to Michael Rothman and shout out to Tony, Mr. Marvelite on social media. We are going to be doing a giveaway for the entire series.
That's right. Take a look.
And not just the entire series, the Gabriel Dell'Otto 1 in 100 variant. So if you want to get this, it's very simple. You scan the code.
Just like that person did.
Yep. And you sign up and you get right there to the Nerd Initiative website. We get signed up for the newsletter, which if you're not following everything going on with Nerd Initiative, you need to get signed up for that. So you definitely want to make sure you're doing that right now. We'll be drawing the winner at the end of the month. So we want to give enough time so when people see the replays of this, we'll definitely have enough time to let it breathe. But like I say, you get the entire series and the variant, which is one of the hardest comics to get your hands on.
Stunning artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Like I say,
2 codes.
We're trying to make this worth your while because like we like to back up what we say. We want you to have these amazing comics in your collection. We talk about them in deep dives. I guess we should say spoiler warning at the beginning, but obviously this one has been out for quite some time.
A long time.
Yes. So obviously this is one that we give a deep dive to. And if you really want to see what's going on, hell, if you're just interested to see where you can find Howard the Duck, this will make it all the worthwhile. Plus, you get an amazing variant that you can't find anywhere else. So, I mean, obviously, shout out to Michael and Tony and everybody at Nerd Initiative for hooking this up. You see the QR code on screen. Definitely make sure you scan that. And make sure you head on over to nerdinitiative.com and sign up at the contact page. And we will be drawing the winner on the show at the end of the month. So, definitely excited to do that.
Very much so.
So, that being said, before we head out, obviously, it's New Comic Book Day tomorrow. So throw it on the spot. Matt, I know you got a couple great reviews. Is there any book that you think, you're looking at everybody, Marvel, DC, whoever's coming out? What is one book that you definitely want to recommend this week?
Man, this week they're kind of re-releasing it because they're getting ready to do another run by this writer in September, and the movie's coming out, hasn't gotten a lot of hype. So I wanted to go ahead and give Blue Beetle Graduation Day
excellent pick.
A shout out by writer Josh Trujillo. who also has a couple other things coming out that you should get your hands on. But this is a 6-issue run. It wrapped up in April. They're about to re-release something tomorrow, actually, and then again, like I said, he's actually going to do a Scarab run of Blue Beetle in September. And so they're getting the gang back together. The movie's getting ready to come out. So if you want to get familiar, I highly recommend picking up Graduation Day. It's a lot of fun. It shows Jaime growing. He's kind of trying to figure himself out as a teenager. And man, it's got, of course, it's got some surprises and some things in there, a couple additions to the Beetle family. But this is definitely one that's just really fun to read and a great introduction to the character if you don't really know a whole lot about him.
Absolutely. Tom, how about you?
Iceman.
Ooh, great pick.
He's Bobby Drake. I mean, an Omega level mutant. He's getting his issue 1 tomorrow.
Fine. And the thing too, if you're not following the X-Men line, I know we didn't do a deep dive about this, but if you have not picked up the Hellfire Gala issue that just came out, one of the most insane reads I have done in quite some time, and I love this issue.
I think we need to cover it.
Oh, we will. Trust me.
See, now I just know the artwork. I've seen gorgeous. I love the art.
There's so much to process, and we definitely will, because I want to talk about that.
Wrong Iceman.
Yeah, but well, you never know.
Could be.
I mean, it could be a multiverse.
I think he's goosing me right now.
Yeah. Oh, well played.
You're dangerous.
But that's the one thing with the Fall of X that's coming out right now too. It's like, if you are not getting ready for what they're doing with the X-Men line over at Marvel, they have got some really cool books coming out. And I'll be honest, like, there's one book that I'm circling the calendar for. It's Dark X-Men by Steve Fox and Jonas Scharf. That one, I'm telling you right now, knowing their previous work and to see those two now on a book together, take my money now. I will probably be posting obnoxiously on social media, so I will give everybody fair warning in advance. But I am super excited to check that out. We can talk about Howard the Duck at some time. I see JJ in the chat, or JT in the chat. We could definitely talk about that at some point. I mean, he does have a lot of things coming out. Howard the Duck, I mean, you think about how much of a pop culture icon he is. I was actually hoping he became an Avenger after this series.
Technically, wasn't he part of one of Strange's teams as the mystical protectors?
Yeah. It's something like, I know not the Defenders, was the Order.
I think he was.
There's been so many interpretations of that team that I lose track a lot. So we'll definitely have to talk about that at some point. And obviously, if you guys have any recommendations, hit us up at nerdinitiative.com and let us know what kind of books you want us to break down for you, because we like talking about those great stories. For me this week, oh man, there is so much good stuff coming out. I'm going to say Adventures of Superman, John Kent. Tom Taylor and Clayton Henry just came out. The whole thing that Tom Taylor, and even the entire Superman line, I know we're talking Marvel on the show, but listen, I got to give DC some love too. The Superman line right now at DC has been some of the best books on the market. And the dawn of DC is really bringing things back to where it's all about superheroes. And I think the stuff that Tom Taylor has done, I mean, one of the best writers in comics, Nightwing, is a whole entity onto its own. We will be talking about that in the near future. But to see what he did with Jonathan Kent in this entire storyline, and how insanely amazing he takes the Injustice universe and ties it in there. And the conclusion of the arc, issue number 4 is up right now. Issue number 6 is the one that just came out. I'm telling you right now, it is absolutely incredible to see that ending, and it is one that I think fans are going to be really, really enjoying. So there's so much at the comic shops this week. You definitely want to make sure that you're going out and going picking up these books. If you need recommendations, nerdinitiative.com. We have got you so many picks this week. Is going to be one that obviously we become your new destination on New Comic Book Day. So starting right at 9 a.m., you're going to see a bunch of great reviews from Matt, Marty Stoked, JJ, Derek from Paperweight Entertainment, yours truly, and even more to come. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. So before we get on out of here, make sure obviously you're clicking the QR code. Matt, why don't you tell everybody how to find you and everything going on at Hops Geeks News?
Absolutely. So yeah, we are just, a comic book, movie, TV, mostly focused on comic books right now during the writer's strike. Go support them, by the way, please.
Absolutely.
feature a beer of the week. We talk about the latest in news. We talk about what we've been reading or watching. We talk about even what we've messed up on. It's a really good time. My co-host Lauren and I do it together, and she's off venturing right now on vacation. But next week we actually have Josh Trujillo on the show with us.
Hey.
And, we talk about Blue Beetle. So, I had to plug it for this week too. Check out that comic. Make sure to find us. I'm on social media. Easiest way is Hopsgeek News. Find us anywhere on social media at that handle. And 99% chance you're going to get me behind the socials. So go ahead, do that. And yes, JT, I made a joke on Twitter today because I'm moving to a very expensive place. And I said I'm going to start selling feet pics. And, apparently I've got one already ready to buy. So tune in there, though.
It'll be packaged up with a Nerd Initiative pouch.
Yes, with a little Nerd Initiative logo on the feet, But make sure to check out my review tomorrow too, where Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer from Boom Studios.
Oh, can't wait to check that out.
We love stuff from Boom.
Yes, shout out to Boom Studios, amazing people.
Yes, they are.
Tom, you have a little bit of an announcement too, ironically.
Well, interestingly enough, for the past 2 weeks, about 10 days, maybe so on, all my social medias have had a big blue question mark on it. For the past several years, I've been going by Off the Cuff Gaming. And slowly, I've been pushing out Off the Cuff Tom. I'm getting away from gaming because as life changes for all of us, we don't have the time to really do the streaming and the gaming and whatnot. This is perfectly fit in my hectic schedule, and I can't wait to keep going on with this. So officially, after this show, my brand new logo and branding of Off the Cuff Tom will go live on all social media.
You
can find me on the Twitters, on the Instagrams, or the X, whatever the heck Elon's calling it this week. The YouTube, the Facebook, all the stuff on the interwebs. Threads will be coming up soon. I am probably not the best person on social media, but if you hit me up, I will hit you directly back within 10 minutes. I will be right on top of it. So it is just the snowball effect is coming, folks, and I can't wait to, be here for the ride.
Yeah, no worries. I'm super happy to have you guys on the show. And obviously, we're going to be getting more of the Nerd Initiative bullpen in on here, too. Plus, we got some more stuff in the works, too. So, we don't want to reveal everything just yet, but we obviously want to hear what you thought about the show. So, obviously, nerdinitiative.com and Nerd Initiative on all the socials.
Bring it, JT. Bring it.
As for yours truly, very simple, short and sweet, ODPH podcast for anything, or .com for anything and everything that is the ODPH. So that being said, folks, thank you for checking out the inaugural edition of Turn a Page. And remember, when you go to a comic shop and you see somebody looking for a story and you have one in your hands, hand it off to them and tell them, turn a page. We'll see you next time.
Ooh.